right. Good afternoon. My name is Katarina Radi, and this is a defense of my dissertation proposal to Notre Dame University of Maryland to the PhD dissertation committee. This is going to be a defense of meta-analysis on effectiveness of praise on skill acquisition in individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and other impairments. I'm very pleased to have here with me today my chair and my two readers, and at the same time, my other committee that is not as known but has been working with me really hard, which is my research lab committee, how I named them. A little bit about me. I'm a doctoral candidate at our university. At the same time, I am also a member of Department of Curriculum Instruction and Training at Bancroft. Most recently, I was awarded for the achievements that weren't just mine, but the whole team, which I'm super proud of. At the same time, I also serve on Special Education Advisory Committee at Rowan University. My research interests include many topics, among them leadership in special education, applied behavior analysis, and designing courses and professional development for teachers. Most recent publications, which I'm super proud of, was in the area of prefrontal synthesis among individuals with disabilities, and we got published in Applied Neuropsychology in 2022. And currently I have another print in pediatric reports with the same team, and we're hoping to get published soon. Some of the presentations and conferences I did in past with my colleagues from Bancroft were on electronic visual schedules, and that was on International Conference of Applied Behavior Analysis in San Diego. Those are my proud team members. At the same time, we work collaboratively on many projects at Bancroft. Most recently, we explored beta testing with an external company on virtual reality. Although my interests are wide, I would like to present to you one of my largest passions, which is praise and how is it applied in education. I'm going to start with the problem statement because that's going to guide our decision making. Praise as an intervention is listed in individualized behavioral plans for our persons that we serve, but also in their IEPs. Despite that, there's a little empirical findings that would support effectiveness of praise as a strategy for skill acquisition. Most notably and most recently, it was done by Nelson et al. In 2022. He conducted a systematic review and included 75 meta-analyses on intervention in special education. Praise was not listed among them. So despite this inconclusive research, praise is very often characterized as one of the interventions in special education, and that could pose a problem for special educators. That actually leads me to my next slide, which is about rationale for praise, and most notably, many of the existing systematic reviews on praise focus mostly on general education population, which is then harder to generalize into special education. Similarly, many of them exclude complex disabilities, and some of them even assume effectiveness and just go to training teachers to praise more or to praise in different ways. Most recently, there was an article from Hutt et al. 2023 that is pointing another issue that is notable in the area of praise in special education, that there is very little evidence of functional relationship between variables that are being tested. So the main reason why I'm mentioning this is because any summary of any current research on methodologically strong studies would be helpful for practitioners, because it would be a quick reference to guide either their future research or their own decisions that would be research-based. The problem is kind of significant because praise seems to be proven for general education and for neurotypical students. However, in many of meta-analyses and systematic reviews, as reported by Nelson et al., praise effectiveness is yet to be determined. And of course, we do need that for practitioners. In literature review, I chose to include two notable works in most recent years that got published on effectiveness of praise. Both of them are systematic reviews. One was done by Markles and Taylor in 2016, and other one by Moore et al. In 2019. Both of those try to address similar topics because they examine effectiveness of praise, as you can see here, and similar ones. Moore et al. 2019 included 30 studies, as opposed to Tyler and Markell's only 10, but both of them, they tackle teachers' attention, for example, as one of the means of praise, which was interesting and not done by many. But both of those studies made the similar conclusion where the results are kind of mixed. Another interesting thing that I would like to point out is that Moore et al. Study was truly methodologically sound and followed by rules that I'm going to be describing later on in my presentation. So this is literature review on existing systematic reviews, but I was looking at another level, which is meta-analysis. So let me show you my literature review of meta-analysis. So my dramatic pause was not by accident. I just would like to make a point that there is no meta-analysis done on praise in special education. So probably next question would be, why am I concentrating on meta-analysis if there seems to be not enough evidence that meta-analysis was ever done? And I could compare and bounce off researchers who've done something similar in the past. It's a very valid question. And for that, I'm going to bring a simulation of made-up meta-analysis, which is seen on my screen. So in general, meta-analysis has truly impactful value for practitioners in several ways. First of all, it is an important tool to reach consensus because we can look at individual effect sizes for individual studies and then draw conclusions, which is truly important. Most recently, it was addressed by Ledford et al. 2023. Additionally, a meta-analysis has powerful tools to address any variability in the study or anything else that should be looked at under closer look. This synthesis is part of meta-analysis. Most recently, it was addressed by Rogers and Pustejovsky, 2021. Actually, Pustejovsky's work is quite impactful in this whole realm of meta-analysis in special education. Again, very important. And finally, as I said, this is why it's truly a guidance for practitioners. In general, meta-analysis generates new and better data and new and better results with new conclusions. That's why it is considered to be an original study. You don't have to take my word for it. Martinich et al. In 2019 conducted a review among editors of impactful clinical journals, and majority of them did consider meta-analysis to be an original research. Another thing that I need to address in my presentation is the fact that individuals with special needs are truly heterogeneous group, which is not always ideal for group studies, because basically we're conducting a study with individuals where everyone is an outlier. Single subject design is a perfect tool to address this flaw. And for this, I'm going to present you a fictional study with single subject research. And as you can see, this kind of research has a lot of positives that we can discuss later. It's truly a powerful tool to hold experimental control because many conditions are repeated in intervention. This kind of study has truly generalizable findings, which is again so important for meta-analysis. And just can address individual differences because each participant is controlled to him or herself. So this is a single subject design with multiple baselines. There's other deviations. For example, this one is alternative design. So there's a lot of variations that could actually impact our decision making on analytical tools that I'm going to be presenting in just a few minutes. The purpose of this study is going to be threefold. We're going to address effect size of praise. We're going to analyze descriptors of individual studies that will make it to our meta-analysis. And finally, and most notably, we're going to include all participants, all settings, and all magnitudes of disabilities. Again, our decision has been made because of teachers and practitioners are expected to serve all students with disabilities. Therefore, we shouldn't make artificial decisions to study only one group of participants in one group of setting. For example, just mild disabilities only in school, which is happening in current research quite often. That leads me to my research questions, which are going to be very simple. We're going to address all descriptors of individual studies, and I'm truly excited. I cannot wait to see analysis of what kind of participant ages are we going to have in our meta-analysis and other descriptors. At the same time, we're going to evaluate relationship between estimates of praise among descriptors. And finally, and also importantly, we're going to address effect size. Most exciting part of my presentation is going to be my suggestion on methodology. And again, with my whole team, I have been working really long hours, and I'm forever grateful to each and one of you. Thank you so much for every remark you gave me. So methodology is going to be driven by Prisma, which is being considered a most complete guidance in methodology of systematic reviews and meta-analysis. Most recently, it was presented by Page et al. In 2021. In my first stage, I'm going to identify individual studies with very specific time range, with very specific justification. We're going to use very specific terms that are going to be praise and assessment, praise and classroom management, and finally verbal approval. This was done after about 5 years of me investigating background story on praise in special education to be able to include most relevant studies and in most effective way exclude studies that are irrelevant. For example, some of the studies that in early stages I had included had titles in praise of special education. So that's why we had to modify terms. In next phase, we're going to concentrate on coding of descriptors. Again, we're going to be driven by Prisma. And probably we're going to then transfer data into our software. Here's an example of a flow chart that I'm going to be using. It was modified from Prisma 2020, which is an open access. My inclusion and exclusion criteria will be very specific, but also very inclusive. I'm also listing exclusion criteria, which is considered to be part of the best practice. And finally, I would like to also present to you an excerpt from coding, which may be modified based on the studies that will be included in my meta-analysis. I'm going to be investigating two main variables. Independent variable is going to have an operational definition from Cooper et al. 2019 because it's being considered to be most inclusive of all types of praise, including, for example, gestural praise that is being evident in some of the studies. and others. Dependent variables, of course, is going to be skill acquisition, but we're going to include many modifiers that we've seen in research on topic, including other, because even now probably there's published studies that we haven't seen and haven't considered, but don't want to exclude just because dependent variable is going to be a little bit modified type of skill acquisition. So we mentioned already single subject designs, which are going to be probably a hallmark of this study just because of the nature of population we're trying to study. And we're going to be utilizing special tools just to address meta-analysis of single studies. So here's an example of how a graph of a published single subject study would look like, which is truly hard to extract the data from. One of the tools that is being used is WebPlot Digitizer, most recently presented by Rohangi et al. 2022. And this is an amazing tool that is able to scan a picture or a PDF and extract data from it. Here's an example. Of course, data can be then extracted and optimized for use in R and R Studio software. We will be probably using both of them. Another hallmark of methodology in single subject studies is also visual analysis. Most recently and most complex presentation, it was done by Banes et al. 2018, but truly a big hallmark was Hornes et al. 2005. And since then, there's a lot of studies published on this topic. So what it means, it's going to be a visual analysis of, for example, effect in all phases or variability and overlap. In applied behavior analysis, we look at graphs like this all the time. And one of the analyses we perform, for example, is analysis of baseline. If baseline is too variable, probably there is multiple extraneous variables in play. Therefore, there may be a problem with effect of the praise or any other intervention. Some of the other things are, for example, if I would be looking at the intervention and my trend is trending downwards, is exactly that where I want to go. It just means that intervention seems to be really effective comparing to baseline. If I would have a student who I need to advise on how to proceed with the study, at the point of session 21, I would ask them actually to continue the study because it seems that intervention is losing effectiveness. And if we want to address effect size, we need to stabilize intervention on downward trend level. So after visual analysis in meta-analysis methodology, then we're going to extract the data and transfer them into our software, maybe R Studio. I listed here some of the effect size estimations that could be utilized for the purpose of our meta-analysis. We're not sure yet which kind of methodology is going to be used for a very simple reason, because this decision is going to be driven by the nature of included studies in meta-analysis, which we don't know yet. So, of course, the most important portion of the whole project is going to be validity and reliability of our study. And we will be addressing it in three different facets or three different areas. Reliability is going to be addressed by inter-observer agreement because we would like to control for the maximum of biases, including, for example, observer drift and others. Validity of the study is going to be done on two levels: internal validity. Of course, we have to be careful what kind of studies are we including, because just like Pustejovsky and Rogers mentioned, meta-analysis cannot be any more valid than the studies that are included in the meta-analysis. And we will be addressing some of the issues with type 2 statistical errors. External validity will be addressed throughout the study and explained in chapter 4 and 5, because we will be addressing replicability and applicability of the results. This was most recently addressed by Cooper et al., but really there's a lot of research on this, so we will be guided by that. I did mention risk of bias assessment, which is going to be another component of this meta-analysis. I'm including also excerpt from my proposal that I sent in a written form. This one was driven and modified from Whitney et al. From 2016, because it seems to be the best addressing potential issues that I may encounter in my meta-analysis. And basically, it is just an assessment of likelihood that study may lead to misleading conclusions, because it's going to depend a lot on interpretation. Page and et al. Had few good suggestions that we will be also implementing in this project. We will include this risk of bias assessment on every stage, not only in the last stage. Because we would like to uncover potential biases and weaknesses. Additionally, which was truly a helpful hint, Page et al. Is asking researchers to implement checks and balances from risk of bias protocol a priori, because then I know as a researcher what kind of issues may I have, and I may just actually address it in my protocol before the study starts. So some of the ethical considerations, which is truly important in meta-analysis, is going to be reporting on, for example, attrition or negative results. And some of the important factors that actually I learned through my studies at our university is the cultural awareness in coding, which research shows that there may be a lot of issues among practitioners and among researchers. Most recently, it was addressed by Kratov-Huil et al. In 2023. And actually, I just changed this because I had an earlier reference from this group of researchers. But they said it the most beautifully, that if we want to control for ethical consideration and for any of potential biases, we should have researchers that are from different cultural backgrounds and from different fields of science. And I can assure you that with my dream team on this project, I am going to have researchers from 3 different continents around Earth, and we all have slightly different fields of science to cover. So I'm excited to get into discussions with my team. In general, however, I'm going to control for risk of bias and ethical consideration with those 3 important tools: Prisma flowchart, coding protocol, and risk of bias. So what we hope to find are finding of effect size. We would like to summarize characteristics of praise, methodological rigor of included studies, potential limitations may be addressed, but because we're aware of them, but there is probably no way that we can eliminate them completely. If I need to reference any of the studies, I will be happy to reference them after I'm asked a question. But the most important portion of this presentation is actually my last slide, because I would like to thank you for this, for your time and for listening to my presentation. And I would like to assure you that I would like to make this study as great as possible. And for that, I would like to ask for your challenging questions, suggestions, because honestly, it's only peer review that makes any study and any research better.
All right, thank you very much. All right, questions from committee members?